I was halfway through my withdrawal when an old man tapped me on the shoulder. I run a small restaurant in North Houston, Brazilian. My family came up from Belo Horizonte when I was a kid, and we have run this place, or a version of it, for almost 20 years. Friday night is our biggest cash night because the lunch crowd is mostly cards, but the dinner crowd, for whatever reason, still likes cash. I am at the bank ATM, the one at the branch where we have our business account, every Friday around 11:30 at night to drop the day's cash into the deposit slot. I have a system. I park at the same spot under the bank's light pole. I do my deposit first. I do my own personal withdrawal second, because I like to keep a small amount on me for the weekend. The branch is closed by 11. The ATM kiosk is in a little glass vestibule that you key into with your card. The vestibule has one door. The door has, by the way, no lock on the inside, which I had never thought about until this happened. That Friday, I had finished the deposit. I had started the withdrawal. I was watching the screen. The vestibule door opened behind me. In the reflection on the screen, I saw an older man come in. He had a card in his hand, holding it up, like he was apologizing for interrupting. He said, "Excuse me, sir. I'm so sorry. My card is doing something funny. Can you help me real quick?" He had a soft voice. He had gray hair. He was, by appearance, maybe 70. He was wearing a windbreaker and a flat cap. He looked to me like one of the older guys who comes into my restaurant on Wednesdays for the daily lunch special. I told him, "Hold on, let me finish my thing." He took a step closer. He said, "It's just, my wife is in the car. She's not well. I just need to get cash for her medicine in the machine. The machine isn't reading my card." Honestly, I noticed two things while he was talking. His card was face up in his palm. The chip strip was scratched in a deep, deliberate-looking way. The kind of scratching that, if you owned a card like that, you would have replaced it. It looked like the scratching had been done with a key. His other hand was at his side. He was holding it loose, but it was angled slightly behind his hip, the way a person stands when they're hiding what is in their hand. The thing is, I am not a small man. I have been on my feet in a restaurant kitchen for 25 years. I weigh 240 pounds. I do not, as a rule, feel physically afraid of a 70-year-old man with a damaged card, but I noticed his hand, and I noticed the door. The door was now propped open by his foot. He had not closed it behind him. The door is on a hydraulic hinge. It should have swung shut. It would have if his foot had not been blocking the bottom of it. I said very loud, "Sir, I will help you in 1 minute. Please stand back. You are too close." He did not move. I hit the cancel button on the ATM. The machine spit my card out. I took it. I turned to face him. I made myself bigger. I said, "Sir, step back. I am calling the bank's security number right now." He looked at me for, I would say, 3 seconds. Whatever he saw in my face changed his face. He stepped back. He turned. He pushed the door open the rest of the way. He left. I saw him cross the parking lot to a car. The car had its engine running and its headlights off. There was a person in the driver's seat. It was not an old woman. It was a much younger man, hat down, looking right at me through the glass of the vestibule. The old man got in the passenger seat. The car pulled out. I called the bank's after-hours security. I called the police. I sat inside the vestibule with my back against the wall away from the door until a Houston PD officer arrived 22 minutes later. The officer was patient. He had me describe both men. He took photographs of the inside of the vestibule. He pulled the security footage from the ATM camera, which is internal, and from the bank's exterior camera, which captures the lot. He told me, "Sir, thank you. You may have helped us a great deal." He asked me to come down to the station the next morning and look at some photographs. I did. He showed me a binder of about 30 photographs. I picked the old man out on page 11 and the younger man out on page 19. The pair, the officer told me, had been linked to a string of incidents at after-hours ATMs across the Houston area. The setup was always the same. The old man would come in with a broken card. He would distract. He would ask for help. He would, in some of the prior cases, get close enough to use a flat metal tool to scrape the deposit slot of the ATM lobby for cash being deposited by the next customer. In other cases, the men would simply jump the victim once he was distracted, take whatever cash he had, and run. In 2 cases, the victim had been knocked down. In one of those, the victim had ended up in the emergency room with a fractured orbital. The officer told me, "These guys have been working this for at least 18 months. We've had a name on the older one for 6. We've not been able to put a face to him." He told me my identification was the first clean ID they'd had of him. The 2 were arrested about 3 weeks later in a different lot when they tried the same routine on a woman who fortunately was an off-duty corrections officer. She had not handled it the way I did. She had handled it with significantly more force. I have changed how I do the deposit night. I now bring my 18-year-old nephew with me. He sits in the truck with the engine on, parked perpendicular to the vestibule, watching the door. We have a thumbs-up signal. He knows what to do if he sees the door open behind me before I have my withdrawal in my pocket. What I think about still is the old man's eyes when I said the word security. His face did not look surprised. It did not look afraid. It looked, the way I would describe it to my wife later, like a salesman whose pitch has not landed and who is moving on to the next door.
The sedan had its lights off, and there was a man in the driver's seat just watching the kiosk. It was supposed to be a 60-second stop. I am not normally a cash person. I use a tap card. I pay rent through an app. The only reason I was at an ATM at all that Friday in April was because my niece had a birthday the next day, and the family does cash in birthday cards. It is a thing my mom insists on. She is Cuban. I am told this is the rule. I'm Talia. I teach 7th grade language arts in Pinellas County. I just finished a parent-teacher conference that ran late. It was a little after 8 in the evening. The kind of dark where the sky is still a little blue at the edge, but everything at the ground is black. The ATM I used was a standalone kiosk in the parking lot of a strip mall on Hillsborough. The strip mall has a Publix, a nail place, a small diner I like, and 3 or 4 storefronts that are usually closed by 7. I'd parked at the very end of the lot near the kiosk because the diner had a takeout window I'd planned to hit afterwards. I put my card in, I keyed my PIN, I took out 140 in 20s. Standing there with the receipt printer chewing, I noticed a sedan parked 4 spaces over from my car. It had been there when I pulled in. I remembered that. I had not registered it at the time because it was just a car. But now I noticed 2 things at once. In that very calm way the brain has of telling you something important before it lets you panic. The car had its lights off. There was a man in the driver's seat. He was not on his phone. He was not eating. He was just sitting there, head turned a little, watching the kiosk. I took the cash. I folded it. I put it in the front pocket of my jeans, not in my wallet. Honestly, I do not know why I did that. I think I had already decided something I had not yet told myself. I walked back to my car. I did not look at his sedan again. I got in. I locked the doors. I started the engine. I turned my headlights on. His headlights came on too. I pulled out of the spot. He pulled out of the spot. I want to back up. I'm a middle school teacher. I am not paranoid. I do not assume people are following me. The world is mostly people on their phones not paying attention to me. But I had watched him watch the kiosk. I had not given him a reason to wait. I had not bumped into him. I had not crossed his path. He was just there. And now he was just behind me, and I did not want to find out what reason he had. I turned right on Hillsborough. He turned right on Hillsborough. I drove past my actual exit. I stayed in the right lane like I was going home. Then, at the last second, I cut across 2 lanes and pulled into a gas station on the corner. He drove past. I watched his sedan keep going east. I sat in my car at the pump for, I don't know, maybe 4 minutes. I started thinking I'd imagined it. Then I saw him come back. He had looped around. He was now pulling into the gas station from the side street. I started the car. I left without filling up. I drove straight to the Tampa Police Department's district office on Henderson, which is the only place I could think of where, if he followed me into the lot, he would have to explain himself to a uniformed person walking in or out. He did not follow me to the police station. I think he peeled off when he saw the turn signal. I sat in the lot for a long time. I went in. I told the desk officer what happened. She took my plate, his plate as best as I'd seen it, the time, the kiosk. She nodded. She did not look surprised. She said, "We've had a wave of these around here lately. It has a name now. It's called jugging." I said I didn't know what that meant. She told me, "Someone watches the ATM. They follow you to your next stop. They wait for you to get out of the car. They break the passenger window. They take whatever you put in the car after the ATM. They're gone in 11 or 12 seconds." In our county, the typical loss was about $300 per incident, but one of them had been $4,000 because the victim had been at the bank earlier and had had a cashier's check that had been deposited and re-withdrawn. She said, "You did everything right. You went to a public place. You changed direction. You ended at a police station." She said, "The next time you stop at an ATM, look at the cars when you pull in. If any of them has someone in the driver's seat with the lights off, leave and use a different one." I have not used a standalone ATM since. I drive to the inside of the bank now. I use the lobby machine during business hours. If I need cash after hours, which I almost never do, I ask a friend. I tell every teacher in our break room the word jugging. Most of them have never heard of it. That tells me something about how this all keeps working. The sedan was never identified. The plate I gave came back to a car reported stolen out of Hillsborough County 2 weeks before. The officer said, very gently, that they thought he had picked me because I was alone in the lot, because I was a woman, and because I'd taken cash out of a kiosk that was a known watch spot. The kiosk has, since then, been removed. I drive past where it used to be sometimes. There's a planter there now. I am glad about the planter. I'd been using the same ATM at the same bank for almost 10 years. I'll call myself June. I sell houses on the north side of Atlanta. My clients are mostly out-of-state buyers relocating for work, and the kind of work they do means I see large, earnest money checks and the occasional client who wants to do, for whatever reason, part of a payment in cash. I am old enough to remember when this was less weird. I am young enough to know it is, statistically, the worst idea anyone has. That August evening, I had taken out $4,000 from the bank's drive-up ATM. It was around 9 in the evening. I had been planning to drive straight to a client's apartment in Buckhead because they were moving out of state the next morning, and the cash, in their request, was being used to settle a private payment between them and a relative. It was not my business. I had simply agreed to be a stop on the way. The drive-up ATM is on Roswell Road. The bank itself was closed. The ATM is set into the wall of the bank, on the side, where the drive-through lanes used to be when banks still had tellers and drive-thrus. I had the cash in a manila envelope on the passenger seat. I'd folded it neatly and tucked the envelope under my purse. Pulling out onto Roswell, I noticed a black SUV pull out of the gas station next door. It came in behind me on Roswell, heading south. I noticed, because of where I sell houses, that the SUV had no front plate. Georgia does not require front plates, but it gives you a thing to look at and verify when you are wondering whether a car is following you. The back of the SUV had a Georgia plate. The front of the SUV had no plate. That in itself told me nothing. What told me something was, I made a left on a small side street, 2 stops down from Roswell, and the SUV made the same left. I made a right on the next side street. The SUV made the right. I drove for, I am estimating, about 1.5 miles through residential streets that I know well because I have shown houses on most of them. The SUV stayed 3 or 4 car lengths behind me the whole time. I did the thing my father taught me. He had been a Birmingham, Alabama, beat cop in the 70s. He had told me once, very specifically, what to do if you are sure a car is following you. You do not drive home. You do not get on a freeway. You drive to a place that is open and lit and has people in it, and you make your problem somebody else's problem. I drove to a 24-hour donut shop I knew, the one on Far. I parked badly right in front of the window with my headlights on in a no parking zone. The SUV pulled in behind me. Honestly, I have replayed what happened next many times. The SUV did not park in a spot. It stopped behind my car at a 45-degree angle, blocking me in. Two men got out. They were in their 20s. One had a hood up, the other had a black hat. Both moved with what I can only describe as a sense of having done this before. The hood walked toward my driver's side window. The hat walked toward my passenger side. I mean, I want to say I performed flawlessly. I did not. I froze. My hand was on the door handle. I did not push. Then a light came on inside the donut shop. A bright purple LED light over a stand mixer at the back. The light spilled out the window onto my hood. The two men noticed it. The hood looked at the window of the shop. There was a man inside, behind the counter, looking at us. He picked up a phone. The hood stopped walking. He turned to the hat. The hat looked at the window. Both of them got back in the SUV. The SUV backed up, fast, scraping the lip of the curb. It pulled out onto Fair. It was gone in maybe 7 seconds. I went inside the donut shop. The man at the counter was already on the phone with 911. He had hit the button before I came in. He did not ask me what happened. He just nodded at me and pointed at a stool. His name, I learned later, was Ahmad. He was a graduate student. He had been working that shift for 2 years. He had told me later he had watched the entire thing through the window from the second the SUV pulled into the lot. He had recognized the pattern from a flyer his manager had taped to the wall behind the register a month before. The flyer was from the Atlanta Police Department. It said the words, "Are you being targeted?" and described what the police were calling, in their materials, a follow-home robbery pattern that had spiked in the area that summer. The police came. They took my statement. They reviewed footage from the donut shop. The SUV's plate was, of course, also gone by the time officers were looking, but the front-end physical description and the angle of approach matched 2 prior incidents. About 6 weeks later, 2 men were arrested in connection with a follow-home robbery from a different bank's ATM in DeKalb County. The men, in their 20s, fit the descriptions Ahmad and I had given. Their SUV matched. In the weeks before the arrest, the same crew had hit 4 other victims. 3 of those incidents had occurred. In one of them, the victim had been struck with a closed fist through the open driver's window. In another, the victim had been pulled from her car. The amount taken across the 4 incidents was, the prosecutor told me, over $30,000. I was the 5th attempt. The donut shop interrupted it. I do not take cash withdrawals over $500 anymore. If a client needs more, I tell them they can do their own withdrawal and meet me at the closing. The client whose money I had that night was, to be fair, mortified when I told her what happened. She moved out of state. She has, I think, no idea that I now insist on bank wires only. What I think about after Ahmad is the purple light. The bakery in the donut shop turns on the stand mixer for the morning batch of dough at exactly 9:15 every night. The light over the mixer is on a timer connected to the appliance. Ahmad had not turned it on. The timer had. If I had pulled into the parking lot 90 seconds earlier, the bakery would have been dark. Ahmad would have been behind the counter. He probably still would have been watching, but I do not know if I would have felt safe enough to stay parked. I would have probably driven on. The SUV, I do not think, would have given up. I had, in other words, been saved by the schedule of a stand mixer. I have driven back to that donut shop since twice. I sit and have coffee. I leave a tip large enough to make Ahmad uncomfortable. He still works there. He is finishing his dissertation. He told me last time that he is going to be a forensic accountant. I told him to please consider patrol officer first. He laughed at me. I was not joking.